Okay, welcome everybody. We are here at the Weiner Wellness Virtual Summit for, unfortunately, our last lecture of the day, but fortunately, we have saved one of the very best for last. With us today, we have Kandy Clayton. She is an ND, an amazing practitioner, a wonderful woman, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about RIFE therapy, the history of it, what it is, how we can use it effectively, and just giving us her personal testimony and how she now uses this with clients. But you also train a lot of practitioners on this therapy as well. So I am really excited to hear more about RIFE, because I can be honest, I'm in your group and I just kind of stalk you a little bit. I'm not really sure of everything you guys are talking about, but it's fascinating. So would you mind giving us a little bit of background about you, and I'll let you take this away.
Thank you. So I got into natural health kind of the back way, or the way so many of us do, unfortunately, and that was losing my own health. And back in 2013, it started with a family crisis. My son-in-law got lost in the mountains in the middle of the winter in a blizzard, and at the time I had bronchitis. So I was taking really high doses of antibiotics, but we were up on the mountain every day with search and rescue, and they were going to call off the rescue because it had been 3 days, 3 nights, and they hadn't found him. So we called in our own private helicopter, and just as we did that, another hospital from down south, down in Utah County, they volunteered to come up, and literally they were in the air after meeting with the sheriff for about 3 minutes and located him. It was just, they were just not going far enough out. But I think what happened was that while I was on that mountain, I was not taking any probiotics. And seriously, the day after, I had systemic candida. And from that day forward, my health just spiraled out of control. I mean, it was coming out from my collarbone down to my ankles. I had candida everywhere, just everywhere. Thrush, you name it. And finally, you know, this was March, and it was about May. I thought, maybe I need to get all my amalgams extracted. So I went to a biological dentist, got them out, and it just made things worse. So I started seeking doctors. I went to about a half dozen doctors, basically felt like none of them had any clue what they were talking about. All they wanted to do was give me prednisone. I didn't know much, but I did know that was the last thing in the world I needed. I needed every function of my immune system I could get at that time. So anyways, did a Parasite Cleanse, was having a lot of colonics, just kind of grasping, doing a lot of herbal supplements to fight down the candida, and really getting nowhere, and just kind of getting worse and worse and worse. And finally reached out to a lady I had met at a conference. I'd been in real estate for many years, and that was likely another reason of the demise of my health, just working, you know, 70-hour weeks, eating at restaurants every day, not taking care of myself. But I reached out to a lady that was just kind of, I always called her woo-woo. Yeah, she was just woo-woo to me. And I'm like, who do you know?
And look at you now.
Look at me now. I am as woo-woo as they get.
That's right. That's right. Now we're going to talk about RIFE therapy. Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, she gave me 2 naturopaths. I called them both. One returned my call. She was actually a naturopath in Indiana, home of Trinity, and actually attended Trinity, I don't know, 20 years ago. But she did bioenergetic testing on me, and she's like, good news. Like, what? We know what's wrong with you. Like, that's great. What is it? She said, you have Lyme disease. I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. I don't have any of the symptoms of Lyme disease. I've never had a bullseye. I don't have muscle pain. I don't have any of that. She's like, trust me, you have Lyme disease. So I didn't believe her, honestly. I kept doing my research. And she told me, she's like, we know how to get rid of this. We use RIFE therapy. And I had experimented with Dr. Hulda Clark Zapper. So I had a good feel for how frequency can work, because I had some pretty negative experiences from that as far as Herxheimer reactions and, you know, killing off of things. I spent the next week or two kind of still researching, and I was doing IV therapy just to keep me alive at the time, you know, high dose vitamin C, glutathione, basically the Myers cocktail kind of thing. And
I think as you talk, can I pull up some of the pictures?
yeah,
Or
please.
do you want to wait?
No, go ahead. So
okay, keep talking.
These pictures that you'll see are kind of during the crisis period. And then we'll get to one where you can see about 3 weeks into my RIFE therapy.
So this, can you see your hands here?
That's just my face there.
Okay, so we're looking at your face one. Okay. Sometimes I
So
can't tell.
you can see this is June 21st of 2013. Just ton of inflammation, and basically what I felt like was I was being attacked from the inside out, and I would wake up with these burns around my eyes, my neck, all under my armpits. And this is about 3 weeks into healing using the RIFE, actually 2 weeks. And you can see it's drastically improved.
We'll show the hands.
Yeah, the hands are really did some damage. These are my hands.
So you can keep explaining. So they thought you had Lyme. So I think that's interesting. And so they saw this through a bioenergetic scan, and then they recommended RIFE therapy.
Yeah.
And so you started this treatment plan with the RIFE.
Yeah. But it wasn't until I was reading Harold Buhner's book on healing Lyme naturally, where he mentioned 2 specific strains of Borrelia, because my symptoms didn't match anything I was reading. You know, I read his book front to back, they just didn't match. So in his book, he briefly mentions in one little paragraph 2 European strains of Lyme, which I'd never been to Europe, but bugs travel. And one was Borrelia afzelii, which actually attacks the skin. And the other one was Borrelia garini, which attacks the central nervous system, which I had full-blown Parkinson's symptoms. I had tremors. I completely lost my ability to speak full sentences. I had no short or long-term recall. And I was terrified. I was under attack and couldn't figure out why. So my husband, you know, it's a big investment. It's a $4,300 investment. And I had spent about $30,000 by that point in a very short period of time, in about a 9-month period. And he was just like, you know what? If we have to go live in the RV, we have to go live in the RV. We got to give it a try, because nothing else has worked. And he's like, you saw how the zapper worked. This is like 100 million times stronger. Let's just do it. We're like, all right. So it shows up at my house. I unpackage it and I just start crying, because it looks like a spacecraft just landed in my living room. And I didn't know what to do with it. So anyways, we got it all put together. My ND got us on the phone, trained us on it. And I started seeing very quick progress. It took me about 6 months to get symptom free, lots and lots of rebuilding. My endocrine system was trashed. My adrenals, my thyroid, I'd lost half of my hair. I had dropped about 40 pounds. My GI system was just a disaster. You know, lots of candida and lots of parasites and just a mess. But about 6 months in, I was symptom free. most Lyme and co-infections were gone. It took about 14 months total.
So
And
this picture is this recovered.
that's recovered.
There she is. Oh, better.
All
So
of
this was
that.
about 6 months in from
Yeah,
that
so-
previous picture we saw, which
Yeah.
in case people didn't see it, this was one of the initials. This was actually a month in from healing, but amazing. Like, I just think that's
So I got my RIFE machine August 13th.
okay.
So that's barely 2 weeks.
Wow, 2 weeks. So
Yep.
incredible. Okay, so this sounds pretty amazing. What is it?
Yeah. So Royal Rife, this amazing man, was born in, I'm going to refer to my notes here, Elkhorn, Nebraska in 1888. And in 1920, he was a doctor. He had many different degrees. In 1920, he had finished building the world's first virus microscope. It was stronger than anything they can even duplicate today. By 1933, he had perfected that technology and it had constructed an incredibly complex universal microscope. He was able to, with this, he was the first human to actually be able to see a live virus. And that was true until just recently. Just recently, the last maybe 10 years, were they able to view live viruses.
Wow.
So through his research, he actually started with, his initial research started with, what's the other spirochete? Syphilis. So he had a doctor friend whose wife had syphilis. And so he set out to find the cure for syphilis. And I think that's probably what led to the frequencies being built around the spirochete for, Bartonella. But what he did immediately after that is he was looking for a way to actually diminish cancer. And he believed, because of his previous research, that cancer likely had a viral complex to it.
Well, did you see Judy Mikovich's lecture when she started to talk about cancer and viral component and contagious cancers and contagious autism and contagious Lyme? Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So, it's funny how he knew back in the 1920s, even before that, right?
Yeah.
About this and was saying it then. And I do believe the government came down hard on him too, right? So
they sure did. Yeah, they sure did. And I'll give a little bit of history about that.
Okay.
So I think that probably the best way to explain RIFE technology is it's most similar. It goes off the like resonance. It's resonance, or the Moore rate, the mortal oscillatory rate. So when you see that opera singer hit a certain pitch and break that glass, it is the exact same concept.
Okay.
So they're able to take a pathogen, a viral component, and find that exact frequency and basically vibrate it to such a point that it destroys itself.
Wow.
And that's what's happening.
A lot of people are jumping on. They're like, Retrovirus channel is phenomenal. I guess you got to tune in, I guess. So, all right. So he comes up with this frequency, and I would imagine there's, thousands and thousands of frequencies. So this is pretty
probably millions at this
probably point. Millions. Okay, yeah, right now, yeah, with all the disease we've created. So go ahead. So he made this different. He went out on this quest to try to cure syphilis for his friend's wife.
Right.
And then what happened from there?
Well, then he got into the cancer study, and what he found is, well, first he was able to isolate and photograph the tuberculosis virus next, immediately after that. And he eventually succeeded in isolating a virus specific to cancer. And he found that it gave off a very distinctive purple-red color in his studies. And he called this virus the BX virus because he found that Bacillus X was in every single instance of carcinoma that he examined. So that's the BX virus. He later did develop the BY virus, and I didn't write down any information about that, but
so that's interesting. So these cancer cells, cancer virus, they all contain this BX virus as like a common factor across all of them.
as far as carcinomas,
Right.
you know, yeah,
Okay.
there's a couple different kinds, but as far as carcinomas go, it's in every single case. So interestingly, he became really good friends with a Dr. Milbank Johnson in Pasadena. At the time, RIFE was living in San Diego. And this Milbank Johnson gathered up like some of the most prominent doctors in the whole world and brought them together. And they actually held a study, sponsored by the University of California. They brought 16 terminally ill patients from a hospital in San Diego and placed them in apartments in La Jolla. And they were treated by the frequencies that Royal Rife had created at that time for a period of 90 days. 14 of the 16 were declared free of any cancer at that time, and 2 others required 1 additional month of treatment.
And so they all were cured?
Yeah.
Now, do you know, and maybe you don't know because maybe, it might require more research, but I'm just going to ask, do you know if they changed anything else? Was there dietary change? Was there complementary supplemental protocols during that study, or was it just the RIFE? I mean, maybe they wouldn't have known back then.
I've never read whether they did anything dietary at that time.
Okay.
I will share a personal story with you. So I have a gentleman who he's a real estate broker and a dear friend of mine for many years. He's about 30 years older than me. And right after I got better, we went to coffee together. Mm-hmm. And I was telling him how I got better. And he just sat there, eyes wide open, could not believe what I was telling him. I said, "Why are you looking like that?" He said, "Well, I grew up in San Diego. And when my dad was about 40 and I think he said about 12, my dad got cancer. And he said the only thing I could remember is he brought home this giant machine with giant bulbs this big."
Wow.
And he had it like 4 months and he never had it again, but he ran those lights every single day and he lived to be 85 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, "I'm positive my dad's doctor was Royal Rife." Whoa. Because it was in the early 30s.
That's amazing.
So I actually know someone personally who was actually treated by Dr. Rife.
Wouldn't that be awesome to get his medical records, huh?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. See what frequency he ran, how he combined it. Yeah. For sure.
But we don't need to. Like that information is so well known in the Rife world.
Okay.
There's no guessing.
So tell me, how many different protocols are there? And tell me like what a protocol would look like. So I see people on your group, they'll be like, "Hey, what's the RIFE?" And I don't know how to term it, right? But what's the channel for this or
frequency? Or,
yeah. So do you run just one? Are there successive therapies? And then do you have a RIFE machine there that we could see?
Yeah. Okay. I'll turn the computer around and show you.
All right.
So the RIFE machine that I used is called True RIFE. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of research on RIFE since, just to know what are good, what are bad. Fortunately, I didn't have to do that research prior. I trusted my ND. Her husband had healed his Lyme with it, so I just went with it. But the company is really amazing. They've done a ton of research. They create protocols for us so we don't have to research frequencies. We don't have to know what those are. We don't need you know, to fumble through books and write our own programs. So I can literally go into a folder, and let's just use cancer, for example. I can go into a folder and there will be a number of cancer programs there. And let's just say breast cancer, because it's so predominant right now. You'll run certain cancer overnight programs. So we have a long tube, and I didn't bring one out. I actually sleep with it every night still. But it's a long tube, it's plastic. You just kind of keep it up by your headboard, or you can lay next to it, whatever. And you run overnight programs. And you do have grounding at the bottom of your bed, which is amazing because, you know, you're bleeding off EMFs, getting that grounding that's so sacred and wonderful for us, but also pulling those frequencies throughout your entire body.
So what do you use as the grounding mechanism? What is it?
It's a sheet,
Okay.
and it's made from NASA technology. I think 3M makes it.
Okay.
But it's lovely.
Like, it's just good.
It's just good. It's all
yeah.
good.
So this tube, what are you pumping through the tube? Is it vibration? What is it?
Well, it is frequency, but what happens is there's a gas, it's an exchange between gas and, let me look at,
No, I was going to dig so deep. Did you? I was like, just tell me everything.
I know. Yeah, hard questions.
Well, this is what I said to you because it's kind of good. I don't use RIFE in my practice, not because I don't think it's great. I just never have used it, and I've always referred people out. Like if somebody had a RIFE machine, I'm like, why do I need one if so-and-so 20 miles away has one?
Every house needs one.
That's okay. Sorry. Scratch that last comment from your mind. Just erase it. Every household needs one. So
I'm sorry.
I don't have one. I have no excuse then. So okay,
right.
So the gas exchange.
So gas is exchanged to plasma.
Okay.
Okay, and the plasma is kind of where the healing comes from. It's like the harmonics, and it's not as much the frequency per se, but the actual harmonics that make the big difference. Mm-hmm. And that's why Mike, the owner of True RIFE, he's a musician. Before he started this, he understands frequency and harmonics. He's so natural at this. It's so easy for him.
Well, that's like the therapy of bioacoustics. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So bioacoustics, for people that don't know, it's basically when you talk, you're missing frequencies in your voice. And goodness, I can't think of her name right now, who started bioacoustics. But she could hear. She had an extra cochlear twist in her ear. And she could hear different frequencies and tones that nobody else could. And she started to recognize that people that had certain diseases or conditions like thyroid or cancer, they had the same tone or frequency missing from their voice. And so what she had her husband do, because she was a musician, she had her husband make tone boxes and would put that frequency in that tone and then give the person that to listen to it, because it was a belief that we hear and then we transfer. Right. So they would listen to this tone every day and they would get better. So it was pretty amazing. Gosh darn it, I can't think. Is it Sherry? Yeah, Sandy, look that up for us. But it was pretty amazing. Same kind of concept that, our bodies respond to frequency patterns, homeopathy, Bach flowers, RIFE, music. I mean, like you hear a good song, like it revs you up, right?
Yeah,
or if you hear something, it changes you. Yeah. So there is truth in that. And I think our senses, right? Those are what impact our neurology. So Sherry Edwards, thank you, Sandy. That was her name. So great stuff. But so when you say the gas exchanges to the plasma, so is there a gas coming out of the tube that has frequency in it that you're breathing in? Like, what does that look like?
No, we do have one bulb, and I'll show you it right here. I have a crystal cover on mine. Mm-hmm. It's protection and amplification, so you'll see little crystals on the front. Okay. But that offers additional healing. Let me see. Let's see. Can you see this bulb? That light's kind of out. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just carry me over there.
in on the dark side.
Oh, okay, I see. So that's the RIFE machine.
This is one of the bulbs.
And what's a bulb?
A bulb. So it's a plasma bulb.
Okay.
And this is one of the strongest bulbs there is. And it's the closest to what Royal Rife used at the time. So these are beautiful hand-blown glass.
Okay.
And it's the electrical component that makes the gas exchange into plasma inside the bulb. Now with this particular bulb, it does emit very, very safe levels of ozone. Ozone is really, really a wonderful healing component, I guess, especially for cancers. You know, it gets in the body, it helps knock down some of those viruses and things like that.
Well, it's the whole theory that, you know, Otto Warburg won the Nobel Peace Prize for, was saying that oxygen is what destroys cancer cells, right? He said cancer can't survive in an oxygenated environment. He gets misquoted a lot with this whole alkaline thing. That's not what he said. But anyway, somebody switched it to sell you a green drink, but it was really oxygenated. Well, it's true, right? I mean, he didn't say it couldn't grow in an alkaline. I've known plenty of people, unfortunately, who have become very alkaline, trying to beat cancer and did not beat it. So it's not just
that's not the goal.
That's right. That's right. It's oxygenation and, you know, balancing nutrients, and as you're talking about, frequency. So you said something happened to Rife. Give us the little history on that, because I think this is fascinating, and I've heard this story before, but.
Yeah, I mean, and sadly, I watched Judy's interview that you did with her last night, and you know, she's experienced basically the same thing that Royal Rife went through. And we have another doctor in Houston, what's his name? That's Bernitsky. He's been going through the same thing, multiple arrests. You know, he's curing glioblastoma, and they don't like it. So they've arrested him like 17 times. And they wanted
maybe the 18th he'll stop, you never know. You know?
Yeah, I know. So what happened is, just shortly after they did this experiment in Pasadena, little Morris Fishbein of the AMA heard about what they were doing, and he sent an attorney to meet with Royal Rife and gave him an offer that he couldn't refuse, and Royal refused. So apparently they don't know the details of what that was, but what they do know is that a similar scenario and offer was made to Harry Hoxsey. And I think most people have heard of the Hoxsey Clinic, the Hoxsey diet. And he was also having similar great success with cancer at the time. But what they did with him is, the offer that they made for him was that Fishbein with the AMA would receive all profits for 9 years and Hoxsey would receive nothing. Then if they were satisfied that it worked, he would begin to receive 10% of all the profits. He kind of decided that that didn't make a lot of sense. So what they did is they started arresting him over and over and over because he was not a doctor. They were charging him with the illegal practice of medicine. That wouldn't work on Royal Rife because he actually was a doctor.
Right.
So what happened is they did, Fishbein did bring lawsuit against Rife. Rife won the lawsuit, but the cost of the lawsuit amounted to financial destruction of his company. All of the physicians that had previously backed him and were carrying on his work were, I guess, polluted by the AMA, and they were threatened with their medical licenses. And basically, they all began to discredit Royal Rife, and it drove him into alcoholism and severe depression. And then they destroyed all of his work. They destroyed his microscopes. they burnt most all of his studies. But there were just enough around. There was just one person, and I don't have that right here, who actually continued his work a little bit. But it really went away, all of RIFE's work for a long time. And from the best I can gather is it was rediscovered in the mid-80s. And one of the reasons that it really became more known and recognized was a gentleman by the name of Barry Lyons wrote the book, The Cancer Cure That Worked. And it's just a phenomenal book. It's an easy read. Everyone should get it. And so RIFE actually died in 1971. And sadly, at that time, he saw an increase from 1 in 24 Americans having cancer to 1 in 3, just during that period when he was having a 100% success rate.
Wow. You know, the interesting thing that I'd want to know is that, you know, as things mutate and change and we see bacteria is getting stronger, and the frequency would have to change. So I'd be interested.
That's what's beautiful, though. That's what's so amazing about this technology is with harmonics and sweeps, they got that covered. So they're able to create these programs in decimal fractions. So that because we know that viruses and bacteria and even parasites morph and change. So you've got to have that broad coverage. It has to go out wide and far. And that's why I want to talk about the difference in some RIFE machines, because there's a lot of people out there who believe that these sound cards and sound files, or, you know, these handheld devices are true RIFE machines. They are not. They are not. These are essentially 12-volt frequency delivery devices, which is about the same as what Hulda Clark was using. And she was a pioneer in this. I mean, she kind of laid the science down for this. But so
still beneficial probably in certain ways.
Absolutely. So what these do is they're able to get all that stuff that are in the blood. Yeah. Fantastic. We can get those free flowing viruses and bacterias and parasites that are in the blood. And that's lovely. And I had that experience using the zapper. So it works. It works really well. Comparatively speaking, so we're looking at 12 volts, but with a plasma device in RIFE technology, you're looking at the difference of 45,000 volts of energy.
Wow.
So these have the ability, plasma devices have the ability to penetrate organs, glands, bone, steel.
So his is considered a plasma device.
Correct. Yeah. And that was RIFE's, that was his invention, that was his creation. That's how he made it work. But, you know, I have 2 little bulbs this big. His were this big at the time.
Yeah.
You know, they were just really big. So,
so these are actually radio frequencies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking up the difference between like what was said, like what you're saying. It's not just a simple electromagnetic wave. Although we know electromagnetic waves can do a lot of damage. I mean, look at what microwaves do to food, right?
Yeah.
He actually was finding radio waves that were accepted by the body, and then the administration of it, or they're emitted by a gas, right, within a glass tube. Now, when I'm just curious because I want to know. So say I have a RIFE machine and I set it up, and you said there's a tube that you put up by your headboard. Nothing comes out of that tube. It's just the frequency is contained in that tube, right, with a crystal backing maybe around it that amplifies the frequency that's in the tube. Am I understanding that correctly?
Or the frequency that's running into it and through it. Yeah. And you'll see some light, you know, there's light involved. So yeah.
Interesting.
Essentially, that's it.
Okay. So So give me some different protocols. Like, is there a standard? Like, all right, let's talk about the recent pandemic, right?
Mhm.
So we know that from what Judy was saying the other day, there is a SARS-CoV-2 virus. It's
Mhm.
not the cause of COVID. Pretty much, she was like, it's a xenotransplantation, so whatevs. But let's say people wanted to boost their immunity. Is there frequencies that you have for like immune boosting? Is there frequencies for cardiovascular issues? Like, what all does this cover, or is it just specifically viruses and bacteria?
No, that's what's so great about it is, so let's talk about COVID too, because what we do have is, the owner, Mike, and one of his researchers went to work immediately when they heard back in like December that it could potentially be a problem here in the United States. And they knew that it was very similar to SARS. So they went to work on putting together these frequencies, and we had many updates during this time. We had, as it was morphing and changing, I think we had 8 different updates to our coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, as we learned more
program.
about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's what's great. The company offers free updates for life. Like, you constantly get free updates. So
Right.
anytime things are changing and shifting, or, a few years ago when we got West Nile, because they're monkeying around with mosquitoes and stuff like that, they came out with West Nile. But so what the protocol essentially is we run immune stabilization at least every 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. So that just kind of keeps your immune system nice and strong. Then we're going to run coronavirus through this bulb, preferably. And this is something to touch on. With viruses, there's a viral replication cycle. And I make this really simple because everyone can understand it. But with viruses, they're typically kind of dormant, especially if we're talking about Epstein-Barr or herpes viruses.
Yeah,
And what
the
can happen,
retroviruses. Mhm.
yeah, what can happen is, if we decide, if it's not active at the time and we just decide to address it, because perhaps it came up in a scan or blood work or something, the first time you run that viral program, and again, I've dumbed this down so everyone really gets it, so pardon me, but the first time you wake it up, the second time you run it, you piss it off, and then the third time you run it, you kill it.
Oh, okay. So you have like phases of detoxification through the body.
Yeah, well, and they call it the viral replication cycle.
Uh-huh.
in RIFE, and that's why it's really important, especially like, I was so lucky I got shingles 5 times in 2 months. So with something like shingles, you want to hit it hard. You want to hit it hard over and over and over and over to get that knocked down. Not that we ever necessarily get rid of them per se, but my ND always had a great saying. She's like, we got to get it back in its cage.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Get it back in its cage.
So is the way the RIFE working, it's working in the opposite polarity of the virus per se, but is it also boosting anything else around it, like your immune system at the same time?
Probably not. Probably
Okay.
not in those specific programs. There's other things, other programs to help do that. I mean, one is a great one. We have Schumann resonance programs.
Okay. Okay.
Just to get that polarity correct.
You just talk like everyone should know what a Schumann resonance program is. Like, Tracy, we have those, and I'm over here like, oh yeah, I knew that. I followed you in your group, totally. So that might be where some complementary protocols could come in with nutrition, or as you're kind of dumbing down this virus, putting it back in its cage, you can be doing some vitamin C or whatever, because
and everyone should be, if you're fighting a virus, you should be on high dose C and your zinc and your D. That's just, everybody needs to do that, especially in cold weather states.
So this has been really fascinating. I didn't know a lot about it, and I've always wanted to. I really feel this is kind of like a hush-hush therapy, though. I don't hear about a lot of RIFE practitioners.
It's very underground, sadly, and I think a lot of more people are finding it today. I don't know why. I don't know what that difference is, other than, you know, a few people like I have got brave and started groups. And I went back and forth about that for a long time. I was afraid for a while.
Yeah.
And then I thought, screw 'em.
You went through a resonance cycle of like, you know, first you're scared and then you tick them off, right? So yeah. Well, that's good. How can people find you? I mean, is your group for people that just have true RIFE? Do they need to have one to be in your group? Oh, the other
No,
thing I wanted to ask you, since this is frequency, and I know you have to kind of be in the room. Do you have to be in the room, right? You have to be with the RIFE machine. Is this, can you transmit it? How does that
yeah,
all work? What if I'm
I
here and
mean,
you're there?
there's a lot of thought about that. I mean, we can blow everyone's mind and talk about quantum physics and
Well,
just
great.
pure
Yeah,
intention.
great. Exactly. Well, I think epigenetics is bridging on that, and Judy talked about that, and Bruce Lipton's talked. I mean, that's what epigenetics is. It's, you know, it's your DNA transcribing to your genes the information that it's receiving. So if
Yeah.
I see something horrific on a screen, and it was like Kim said in a very simple way, she said, if you're watching Freddy Krueger and you're eating the popcorn, you're not digesting the popcorn, because now your sympathetic nervous system is in fight or flight and your parasympathetic is in the toilet and you're not resting and digesting. That's
Yeah.
from just a simple visual.
Right.
So I don't think it's a far stretch anymore. I think people are really understanding. And look at our COVID, right? We talked about this right before we jumped on. We made health policies based on fear, period. Not facts, not scientific data. We on fear, straight up. We were afraid. And so let's shut down the world. Everybody get a mask, stay 6 feet, shut down the schools. No one's allowed to gather. And they were like, but we don't even know how it transmits. Oh, wait, it doesn't stay on a surface more than 30 minutes. So why? Yeah. So, and then they didn't, I mean, it just went on and on and on. So I think epigenetics is there. We're seeing that what we eat and what we think and what we look at and what we hear, it's actually transcribing to our genes. And our genes are coding and expressing the wrong things for our body. And now we're sick. So let's just jump into quantum physics. Tell me. So if I'm here and you're there and I need RIFE, can you send it to me?
Absolutely.
Is it like snail mail or?
I believe that.
Okay.
I believe that. I don't know if somebody who was an unbeliever, if it would be as effective, but I will share with you. I mean, while I believe that, and I know that to be true because I'm now woo-woo, I want my frequency right next to me.
Okay.
If I'm
it's
fighting
probably
for
more
my
effective.
life, I want it right next to me. I love all the other stuff. I mean, I work with amazing practitioners that I met through Trinity that do sound files for my clients, you know, in a pinch. And we just throw everything at it. We throw nutrition, we throw detoxification, using RIFE, using biophoton stuff, essential oils. I mean, there's so many herbs, great things just to help. We got to get those detox pathways open. You know, these people, once the disease is there, we got to deal with it. We got to deal with it. And
Well, I
that
think, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, that just means getting that lymphatic system working and those detoxification pathways and allowing drainage to happen.
And I think the analogy of like going to the grocery store and buying organic fruits and vegetables or growing them in your backyard, right? When you grow them in your backyard, they are vine ripe, you pick them, they're fresh, you know that all that goodness is in there, you've controlled the environment, you get it. And that nutrient is so dense, right? Compared to going to a grocery store where it's picked before it's vine ripe, it's been sitting there for 3 weeks, it's lost some efficacy. So I think the same thing with RIFE. While it can be the grocery store purchase where you're sending that, you know, sound file or whatever, if you have it in your bedroom or you have it next to your bed or you're doing an overnight program, it's like growing food in your garden. It's more powerful, potent. That's kind of how I would probably think of it if that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you want that frequency right next to you. You know, you want it. You want your cells vibrating off of it.
Yeah. And so just for the people that have joined late, because a lot of people have joined, I'm going to drop down. Do you guys see the pictures of Kandy here. So going across from when she was first told she had Lyme by a naturopathic practitioner who did a bioenergetic scan. And what's this time frame, Kandy, from?
So this is June 21st on the far left.
Okay.
The middle one is August 28th, about 15 days after I got my RIFE machine. And then the other is just a little bit less than a year from the first photo.
Okay. So that's pretty amazing of how sick you were and how far you came. And so while it may all have been true that you had candida and all that other stuff, really you had to get to the root. And I think that's the biggest thing with natural health is, you know, we're not symptom repressors, you know, and we have to get away from the model of a pill for every ill. I mean, even in natural health, I'll see people go see a practitioner and they come out with 40 supplements, or somebody will just recommend a protocol because that's the protocol was put together in the nice little box, but it may not be what that person needs. So are there individual frequencies that you can design for people, or?
Yeah, there's a couple ways we go about it. And I'm a huge fan of bioenergetic testing. For one, it proved to be so true for me, and it walked me through the phases of healing so well. I use it with my clients now. It's just a big part. It allows us to do healing much more rapidly because we're supporting the body with nutrition. We're addressing the organ and glands that really need to be addressed on a monthly basis. And we're able to see what programs might be of additional benefit. Because if we're dealing with cancer, we're going to deal with that cancer. But perhaps we need some underlying lymphatic support, which can be done with the RIFE as well. So that allows us to see it. And often we see a lot of liver or spleen, you know, that needs support. So we can run those programs on the RIFE. There are a lot of normalizing and supporting programs on the RIFE machine as well, which we can utilize in that healing process. Oh,
Sandy was asking, which scan do you use for your bioenergetic feedback? She's not going to say, Sandy, unless she gets royalties. No, I'm just kidding. We want money.
I don't do them personally. I work with professionals.
That's what I did, who had people that had Quest 4 or, you know, just all of the ones out there. It was really simple for me just to call them up instead of me buying the $15,000 machine. I was like, I was like, hey, I'll pay you X amount of dollars if you run this scan. And that's a great way to network. You know, just the same with you. Like, so how do people find you? And I know you said there should be a RIFE in every house. Can they contact you if they're interested as a practitioner to get one of these? Or
absolutely.
Okay, so what is your information so we can relay it to everybody?
Okay, so I do have a group on True RIFE, or on Facebook. It's called True RIFE Successes. 3 separate words. Successes. Okay. And my email is Kandy, Kandy, at Nature's Way, the number 4, health.com.
And I'll make sure I put all this information. Is there an office number they can call, or?
Yeah, 801 201 2031.
All right. Well, this has been very awesome. Thank you. Is there anything you want to finish up with, or anything we missed?
Nothing I can think of. Anybody have a question?
Nope. They're just, again, basically the scan. People are putting in the different channels they like, and it looks like some people, you know, it looks like people use it. Suzanne said, I use Gigabyte 4000 and MOPA GB with plasma light. Love it. That's my fave. I'm just messing with you.
GB and True RIFE are really the only companies that I fully trust.
Okay. So this is a different company that actually does the right technology as well. So yeah, this was great info. Thank you. I have such a better understanding and appreciation for this type of therapy. And, I would recommend people or practitioners, if you're interested, you want to learn more about this, or if you want to utilize something like this in your practice, to get in touch with Kandy. She can get you connected with those that, if you want to purchase a RIFE machine, or just simply find out more about it, or go see her on a practitioner level so that she can help you attain your optimal health. So good stuff. Love it. I think Fitz is going to have another gadget in his office too. So Dr. Fitz is on today. All right, Kandy. Well, it's great to see you. And I'm so happy for you and proud of you all at the same time. You've really come a long way. And, I wish you all the success in the world. And thank you for everything you do in natural health. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. You too, Tracy.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today at the Weiner Wellness Virtual Summit. Make sure you tune in tomorrow at 8:30 when we get to start all of this again. All right, guys. Have a good day.
Bye.